Happy Sunday. Ah, another day, another week, another opportunity to push ourselves to where we want to be in life. Another chance to really take this spring/summer season by storm. We're heading into the month of June, which really is a month of supposed to be expansion. Hopefully we're seeing that in the world today. As things start to ease up a little bit, hopefully it'll lead only to good results. Very symbolic of this season, of us expanding out of where we are, of us pushing ourselves. Had a very interesting weekend. We were celebrating the holiday of Shavuot, of Shavuos, remembering the anniversary of God giving the Jews the Torah on Mount Sinai. And there's this interesting medrash, this interesting part of the oral law that explains that when the Jews got close, God, so to speak, held the mountain over their heads. It's like, I guess, proverbially. And people asking why, doesn't that ruin the point? Shouldn't they be accepting it willingly? And the answer that we spoke about over the weekend was this idea that a person can know something is right, but as they get close to it, as they're about to do it, all of that logic goes out the window. And this is the concept was as the Jews got close, they got nervous. But over the weekend, this happened a few times, and people were sharing stories. And as people walked by, and I was able to sort of share this idea with them, people were sharing very interesting stories about how in life this happens. And I'm sure this happens to you as well, that you can know something is right, but as it gets close to the thing that is the most important, right before you're about to do it, there's this rush of emotions that pushes us back. And it's illogical. And you know you can do something, but you don't feel like you can right before you're about to do it. Right? There's like this right as you're there, right at the game, right at that moment, right at the phone call, right at the cusp of that which you want to be doing. There's this sense of, no, I can't. I'll just do it tomorrow. I remember we used to before we'd go to, I remember for years, still now, sometimes for some of them, before I go to a big speech or something, I'd just hope that I'd get there and it was canceled. And I didn't want it to be canceled, but I'd hope that I'd be on an airplane and I get a call being just go home, because the nerves kick in. And what these nerves do is they keep us mediocre, because all the stuff that we want to become is right after those nerves. It's right after that little bit, that little veneer of you can't. Right over that hill is boundless. When I say boundless, is a reservoir of yes, you can. And really where the work that we're doing starts to click in is when you start to understand that from a logical perspective. What do I mean? A lot of what we're trying to do together is move away from the world of reacting into the world of being deliberate, right? Reactionary things that we do, it's haphazard. But maybe more importantly, if you're going to react to things without thinking about them, it'll take you a long time until you become good at something. Because the world will have to send you things consistently for you to become good at it. But if all you're doing is reacting, you're leaving it up to the world. Now, of course, God sends you everything, but you're leaving it up to whatever you're doing to guide your life. So if you do something every day, then you'll gain experience in it. But what if you don't? What if you do it differently? You're just reacting all day. But if you're deliberate, if you're thoughtful, what you're doing is you're acting in a very specific way, and then you're reviewing the actions in a very specific way. You're treating yourself like a Fortune 500 company. And so your days are getting more and more structured. I think it was Friday, it was Thursday. I'm sure Andy will tell me when, but it was Thursday when we spoke about this idea of expanding the neighborhoods, right? Finding structure in your day and then expanding it and trying to get as much structure as possible. That's how life is reactionary. What are you going to do? Sometimes the phone call comes in. Sometimes an email comes in. Sometimes the kids say something. Of course, this is life. But if you can somehow sort of quarantine the reactionary period to pockets of your day and then put in more structure, with that structure, you'll get better. Because structure will build neuroplasticity, which will make you more of an expert, which will make you better at your life. When you wake up in the morning and it's like, what are we doing today? You're not going to have a killer day. You may get lucky once or twice, but for the most part, you're not. That's just some people retire and go out of their minds. Some people don't. Some people do. Some people retire and go out of their minds because they had very structured lives and they were maybe working hard. Thank you, Andy. It was Thursday. And he put the YouTube link. I mean, there's only one Andy Boltax in the world. For those who are on Zoom, for those who are watching in different platforms, awesome. For those who happen to be on Zoom with me in the morning, you get the benefit of Andy Boltax's comments. Just letting you all know. That's the benefit of being with us live in the morning. I hope the people on Facebook get the benefit of that as well. But those that are retired, this happens all the time. People that have lived structured lives. This happens to a lot of kids. They can't wait to be done with school. Can't wait. They're done with school. Have 2 days sitting in the house. They're going out of their minds. They just can't wait for camp to start. Because when you have structure, you feel differently. When you're unstructured, you're going out of your mind. As much as we crave to be free from structure, we actually crave structure because structure gives us more of a purpose. So why wait for the world to structure us? Why don't we structure ourselves so that we can take ourselves where we got to go? Yeah, we can put in the job structure and the school structure. Okay. But let that be part of our structure. And here is one of the benefits. This is what we're trying to accomplish, to really understand why it's so critical for, because this is a critical piece to this. Because only when you have structure do you start to see the bumps that come on the road to accomplishment. Right? So when you deal with something that's difficult, right? Life, like, the famous, I've seen this a million times, and there's a lot of truth to it, right? Life begins at the end of your comfort zone, right? There's a lot of truth, I think, to that statement. So much of what we want to accomplish happens at the end of our comfort zone. I was on the phone with someone recently explaining to him he was, I guess, struggling, and I was explaining to him that where he is in his role in the company is that so much of his compensation and his value is doing things that are uncomfortable, right? That's the executive's value. When you go to a company, you say, how come the executive makes more than the regular person? Regular person's working harder. A lot of times the reason is because the executive does things that are much more, in a way, uncomfortable. Not in every case. But the executive's job is to manage people, which is uncomfortable. The executive job is to make conference calls across different companies, making deals. These things are very uncomfortable. People don't like doing them. That's why salespeople sometimes make more than others, because it's hard to pick up the phone and make cold calls. But understand that the value of what you're bringing is in the world of discomfort. In many ways, that's how our life works. The things we want to accomplish, the things that are going to give us the most value, really exist outside our comfort zone. The quality of the relationships that we're looking for really exist when we can deepen ourselves and connect to somebody else in a deeper way. This is why sometimes it's so hard to connect to people, because we're so bad, we're so uncomfortable being uncomfortable, that the relationship stays shallow for so long that it just becomes a shallow relationship after a while. The value of our own accomplishments and what we want to do sometimes requires us to go out of our comfort zones, to try something we've never tried before. Staying safe really holds us back. Now, when you live a more structured life, and you're thinking about it, right? Time to think, time to act, time to think. When you're planning and acting, right? When you're living in the world that we're trying to build for each other, I want to add a piece today, which is learning how to recognize the boundary, if you will, the border of discomfort. Because if you can't recognize the border, you won't know how to get through it. Right? If you're driving down the highway and it's smooth sailing and then you pull up and there are police guards, you're like, what's happening? If you don't realize that you just got to a new country and it's normal for there to be a border, you're going to, what am I doing here? Like, I got to turn, why are there cops? But once you recognize that these are border patrolmen, border officers, then you pull up and you deal with what you deal with at the border, and then you know now you're entering into a new country. It's not weird. Even now, it's amazing. We were talking about what people are doing this summer in case camps are shut down. And we're having this conversation. People are like, well, maybe we should rent a house here. Maybe we should go to this state, maybe that state. And I'm like, why don't we go to this country? Why don't I go to Israel for the summer? And they're like, well, you can't get into Israel. I said, well, how do I know? Because that's a different border. It's a different country. Here in America, it's free. So if you're living here, you can travel within states. There's no borders. But once you leave and you have to go to passport control, once you leave, you got to go to a border. It's a whole nother story. But you have to recognize when you're leaving countries, and you have to act differently at the borders. If you're totally out to lunch, you have no idea. But if you're at least cognizant over states and countries, you understand the differences of different types of borders, different types of rules in new borders. What takes place in New York may not be the same rules of quarantining and social distancing that takes place in Florida, or takes place in Vermont, or takes place someplace else. So when you go to different places throughout the country, the rules start to change. That's how it works in your life. When you go to different places in your life, your brain starts to change. There are parts of your life that's smooth sailing that always feels exactly the same. So you wake up in the morning and you can just drive there. You can always drive to things that are very comfortable for you. Then there are parts about you that are very uncomfortable. Some of them are like going state to state for those who are watching this from America, which is for the most part fairly easy. And sometimes it's even more complicated. It's going to one country or another country. But you have to understand that the border is not the country. The border is the border. And what goes on the border, the security checks, the checkpoints, that doesn't mean that's how it's going to be when you go into that whole country. That's just the border. You gotta know the difference. And you won't know the difference if you've never traveled before. But once you travel once you travel twice, once you travel 3 times, you learn this border country is this type of border, and for that country is this type of border, and this country, by the way, don't go in that country. You start to learn how to travel. That's how life works. When you understand your mind, when you start to track your feelings, when you slow down and think, when you try to structure your day, you start really realizing, oh, wait a second. When I get to that person, every time I get close to that person, I have this feeling. I'm nervous. And when I get to the border, remember, it's just a border. It's just that first phone call. But as soon as I pick up the phone and call, as I cross that border into that person, it's awesome again. So when I see him or her, I always get a little, but they're not going to bite my head off. They're human beings. She's my wife. He's my husband. That's my family. And I just got to get over a little hump, a little border. And then I got so much strength, and it's so good, and it's going to be so much more enjoyable over there. I just got to get through that initial discomfort. I can get up there and speak. I can get up there and present. I can try this new thing out. It's just a little uncomfortable for the first few minutes. As soon as I get up there, I do great. So as I feel nervous, remember, those nerves, forget what they do to me for my benefit, which we can talk about another time. Those nerves aren't an indication that whole thing is going to be terrible. Those nerves are just a border. I just got to get past that initial sort of layer of I can't. And as soon as I get past that, it becomes good again. This happens to those that are trying to wake up earlier. It's so critical. If you want to accomplish things, you got to wake up early. It's like, to me, how early is a discussion? But if you're waking up when the whole world is up, it's really hard to do things that are, or maybe you can go to bed, maybe if you're a night owl, whatever it is, you got to have time in your day where the world isn't like hustling and bustling. So lots of times people try to wake up early and that alarm goes off and they're like, if I get out of bed, I'm going to collapse. I can't do it. It's impossible. And then one time they have to get up for like an airplane, and the alarm wakes off an hour before they would want, like, they'd otherwise want to get up. And they get up and they're exhausted and they make the plane and they go through the whole day and they don't fall asleep during the whole day. And the next time the alarm goes off, they're supposed to say, there's a border called I can't that is existing right now. It's not real. I'm just laid down and I'm comfortable. My body could get up. And once it does, trust me, once it does, you tell yourself, that feeling of starting my day with a quiet cup of coffee. I mean, remember how good that felt? Just get past the border. This country called quiet time is awesome. Get past the border. This world called financial organization feels awesome. So I know you always push it off, but you got mortgage payments and you got bills and you don't know which way is up. Just spend 3 hours on a Sunday and just go through your stuff. I know it's annoying. I know you can't do it. I know the border says do it tomorrow. This is it. Just trust me. You tell yourself. Remember, this is what we do. This is our ritual on Sundays. This is how we fight the border. And then once you cross that border into the country called finances, you get a handle of it, your bills get paid, it all happens before the week starts, you feel good. That only works if you're analyzing yourself. It only works if your actions are sandwiched between thought and thought. That only works if you have yourself as your greatest coach that's right behind you, saying, we've done this before. If you never look back on your day and analyze, you don't have time to even think this way. You're just still nervous with the same stuff for 20 years. You said no to things you should be saying yes to. And when someone says this to you, this happened recently to somebody. I don't know what I could say. So I'm sorry that I'm so vague. I don't know what I could say. I should ask people to sign waivers when they call and email me. I should do that. Andy will remind me. I should have like waivers. Someone called it something very difficult. And then at the end, they did it. And I said to them, like, see, you could do it. And their response to me was, no, I hope I never have to do that ever again. I can't. And I'm like, wait, you did it. What do you mean? Like, I don't understand. You couldn't. You had to. You did it. And now it's done. You look back at that experience and you see how you can't do it. I don't understand how you don't see how you could do it. And you're like, no, I hope I never do that again. No, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like oh my gosh. Here is a chance for you to show your brain that all the nerves that it sends at you, all that survival. Remember, the whole goal is to take the brain, which is survival given to us by God, and upgrade it to greatness. The soul is great. The natural brain is survival. The soul says be great. And the goal is to take the soul and let the soul be the master of the brain and say, we're going to make you great. And here's this person that overcame this big challenge. This is the moment where they look back and go, whoa, that border seemed scary. But once I jumped past the border, I could do it. And you keep at it. Go right back to that place. Keep doing it. And after a couple of times, that border is going to be wide open. And you're going to own something you didn't own before. It's like risk. You're going to have more territory. It's like life. You start off with a little tiny territory and you just expand out. Your little baby, all you have is like your crib and your parents. And then you expand out to like your friends, and you expand your siblings and friends. And then you go to school, right? And then and every time you go anywhere, it's nervous. I can't go to school my first day. The kids are crying. You drop the kid off who's like 2 or 3 or 4, and they start screaming for mommy. And like the teacher holds them back, and everyone feels like they're terrible. And then after like 3 weeks, the kid's having the best time. And then he expands his territory. Then he goes into elementary school, it's so hard. Then he goes to high school, it's so hard. Then he goes to camp, and it's so hard. The goal in life is to expand your territory. So you're in a way, you're fearless. You're not stupid. You're not careless, but you're fearless. That's the goal. How do you do it? Structure. Review your day. Look for boundaries. Look for boundaries and move them by inches. Today I was nervous. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm never going to do this. But you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to inch my boundary today. I was okay. I got through it. The next time I feel nervous about that boundary, remember, you got through it. Push through it again. And your brain goes, but I'm going to fail. And then you go, no. Remember, you got through it. And you go close to it and go, I got through it. And you push it again. And you realize that you're okay. And you push it again. And the next thing you know, the boundary doesn't exist there anymore. That's how people become great. They look for the boundaries. And they remind themselves that the emotion that flows in isn't real. They're smart. They don't do dumb things. But they're calculated. They review their day. And they overcome the challenges that are really just there, that are based on emotion. Let's do this today. Let's do this together. Let's do this today. Look for a boundary in your life. And push through it. Use your brain, not your heart sometimes. Think. And then act. And then see how it feels. And write it down somewhere. Put it in your ideal day. And then do it again. Until one day that's not even a boundary anymore. All right, we'll talk a little more this week. A lot going on for us this week. We'll get to the workbooks this week. I want to show you some of the things that are in there that we can start using to hopefully we'll do eulogy. We'll do a bunch of things this week. We have with God's help, a big week coming up. Thanks so much for tuning in. Happy Sunday to everybody who's here live. For those that are on demand, remember you get this live every day, 9 o'clock on Zoom, on Facebook, on my Facebook, Charles Harari, or on the Momentum Facebook, or we get this on demand afterwards on my YouTube page or on my Instagram page. Hope you all have an amazing, amazing, amazing day. And with God's help, cannot wait to see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.